Today's video is on pedestrian crossings. I haven't made a video for a while, so I thought it'd be good to cover pedestrian crossings. Very important to know how to deal with them all, the different sorts, and what our practice should be. So first of all, we're going to just talk about, before I actually deal with the process, talk about the different kinds of crossings that there are. The oldest one is called the zebra, which is the black and white stripes on the road, usually with black and white stripe poles, but not always, but usually. And on the top of the black and white poles, flashing amber balls, flashing amber beacons. The name for them is Belisha beacons, which is named after the guy that invented them way back around 1935. The second sort of crossing is, because at first there were just zebras. There were only zebras at first, and then later on, years later, came the first of the pedestrian controlled crossings, which is the Pelican. And this Pelican is an acronym which stands for Pedestrian Light Controlled. And quite simply, the pedestrian presses the button that controls the lights. So first was the zebra, then came the Pelican, and then later came the Puffin, and that also is an acronym, stands for Pedestrian User-Friendly Intelligent. And the difference between a Pelican and a Puffin is, for the pedestrian, when you press the button, you'll have a certain amount of time to cross the road. It's on a timer. But with a Puffin, there are sensors on the top, user-friendly intelligence. So there are sensors on the top of the crossing lights that watch the pedestrian cross the road, and once you're over the road, the sensor picks that fact up and changes the lights. A third sort is called the toucan, where the light sequence is the same as the Puffin. Toucan simply means that it can be used by cyclists as well as pedestrians. There's also one for equestrians, which you don't see at all really in Birmingham, where the buttons are much higher up for horse riders to use. You get them sometimes out in the country, but they seem to be pretty rare. And then another important one that you will meet with in the city, of course, is the Lollipop lady. Now that's not controlled by the pedestrian. The Lollipop lady or the Lollipop man has a, you've seen them, have a pole with a big circle on the top saying stop. And the rules for that are, and they are illegal, they must be treated as a legal crossing. The rules for that are, when the pole is down, when the lollipop is on the floor, you may drive by. If the lollipop lady or man holds it horizontally, treats it as a barrier for pedestrians, and you may still drive by, although of course with caution. But once the pole goes up, once the lollipop is at the top in the air, then you must stop. You must stop. You're legally bound to stop, even if the lollipop man or lady has not yet walked into the street, into the road. When the pole is up, you are legally bound to stop. There is on the lollipops a little black area, and I'm told that's so that they can write down in chalk your number if you infringe the rules. I've never seen anybody do that, but I don't know how true that is, but that's what I've been told. Well, that's what I've read maybe somewhere. So those are the major ones. We've got a zebra coming up here. Flashing Belisha beacons, black and white poles, black and white markings on the road. So this is a zebra. And just keeping an eye on the man on the right. No problems at all. And watching that junction, of course, we're safe to go. A couple of important things to know about the lights themselves, particularly the difference between Pelican and a Puffin. Pelican crossings will have a flashing amber sequence, which traffic lights do not have. Ordinary crossroad traffic lights don't have flashing amber unless it's combined with a crossing. But Pelican crossings have a flashing amber, and you must not cross unless the crossing is clear. And if the amber is flashing, you must wait until the crossing is clear before you go. With a pedestrian user-friendly intelligent crossing, that is to say a Puffin, there is no flashing amber sequence. The sequence is the same as ordinary traffic lights. So there you must wait for green. Now here we've got a zebra, no one waiting. So puffin, no flashing amber, pelican, flashing amber. That's all really you need to know about that. Now zebras are not obviously pedestrian controlled. There's no buttons at a zebra crossing, the pedestrian just waits. And I always try and make it my practice, if there's a zebra, to give way if someone's waiting. And the routine, the procedure for pelicans, puffins, toucans, all of them, zebras, is mirror check as soon as you see it. Because you might have somebody tailgating you and you don't want to be pulling up harsh, having noticed the pedestrian too late, if you're being tailgated. So the first sight of the crossing, we've got another zebra coming up. I'm checking my mirror. I'm looking at the crossing now. Is anybody waiting? That's the second thing to do. And this one is humped. So bringing the speed well down. I've got two white triangles marking the floor, telling me that this is humped. And mirror. Pick up speed. So the routine, mirror first always. First sight of the crossing, check the mirror. Next thing, is anybody waiting? Look to the right, look to the left. If there are central islands, we'll talk about that a bit later. The procedure is just slightly different. So I'm going ahead at the roundabout and I can see flashing amber after that. So there's a crossing over there and it's a pelican. We're safe to go. Green light on the crossing at the moment. Looking, I've checked behind me, car's not too close, no one at the crossing. We're quite safe here. Now the next set of lights is across roads, and you'll notice, you may be able to see as we come up, there are no boxes, there's no yellow box on the poles here. Sometimes crossroads are combined with pedestrian crossings, but there's no poles on the posts here, which means pedestrians don't have any control. That doesn't mean you shouldn't look out for them, but they can't control the lights. You'll notice as we get a bit closer here, no poles on the right, no button box on the right or on the left. That's the yellow button box in the pedestrian bit. So there's no control for pedestrians there. Something else that's very important to have in mind with the various kinds of crossings is that you'll often get a zigzag markings on the approach to the crossing on both sides of the road. That's left and right hand sides of the road, both before and after the crossing. And the rules for zigzags are you don't park on them and you don't overtake the vehicle nearest the crossing within the zigzags, either before or after. The reason for that is if you park on those zigzags, you may be obscuring the view of the traffic following you, or in fact coming towards you if you're on the other side of the crossing, so that people can't see. Check my mirror, I'm looking both sides, no one here. There's the zigzags, this side of the crossing and the far side, so you don't park on there and you don't overtake within that zigzagged area, as I say, so that you're not obscuring the view. Another crossing, mirror. Somebody walking up this time, I think he's pressed the button. Very important, always leave the crossing clear. Even if the light's green, wait till you can get off the other side. Treat it like you would a box junction. Don't stop on a crossing. Because if you do get held up by the traffic, a pedestrian might turn up while you're sitting there, and now you're in the way. If he presses the button, you're now illegally parked on the crossing. I have said already, I've got a zebra coming up here. Checking the mirror, completely clear behind. So looking right and left, no one waiting. Be very careful if they're on the corner as well, because a pedestrian might suddenly come around that corner, and the next thing you know, they're at the crossing. Now zebras you have to be very cautious about, because the pedestrians can't control the lights and they could step out at any moment. And as soon as the pedestrian has got 1 foot on the road, on the crossing, you are legally obliged to stop. So it's very important to be looking out for them. Don't just look at the immediate crossing itself. Look before and after it. Is there a pedestrian approaching the zebra? And are they going to get there before you? In which case you might need to be slowing down a little on approach. The same would apply to the controlled ones, puffins, pelicans and so forth. Not only is everybody standing there, is everybody approaching, because if they get there before you and press the button, the lights could change immediately. I've probably had good percentage, I wouldn't like to put an exact figure on it, but a fairly good percentage of pupils fail for carelessness at pedestrian crossings. I'm not suggesting I get a lot of fails, but what I am saying is when I do get them, it's fairly common that they've missed the crossing. They haven't been looking for pedestrians properly, and they've either been dual controlled or they've gone through a bit riskily. If the examiner's there, if there's any real risk, he'll control it. That the last test I took as a young lady failed for that very thing, not looking at a zebra crossing properly. They can be dangerous, zebras and pelicans and puffins, because very often the pedestrian will assume, especially if it's light controlled, that you're going to take, as a driver, you're going to take responsibility. And sadly, too many drivers, they see a green light, they don't look, they just keep going. So each assumes that the other is going to take responsibility, and you've got a recipe for a dangerous, possibly even a fatal accident. So keep in mind, pedestrians are not necessarily going to look properly. You're the one with the killing machine, you're the one with 1.5 tons of metal. You should be giving way if you see people around. They're not going to hurt you, you're going to hurt them or kill them. So we have to be very responsible at crossings. Crossing coming up, checking my mirror. No pressure from behind. Got zigzags here. No one waiting at the crossing, right or left. So perfectly safe. And I'm going to go left at the roundabout ahead. Also, nighttime crossings can be particularly dangerous at night time. Many years ago, there was a campaign, an advertisement campaign on the television, wear something light at night, which is a good idea. If you've got a light coloured coat or jacket or whatever, you'll be seen a little better in the dark. Pedestrian crossings can be really dangerous in the dark, because especially if the pedestrians are all dressed in black, and they're not always lit very well. In fact, they're frequently not lit very well. And again, you're the one with the killing machine, you're the one with 1.5 tons of deadly metal. It's your responsibility to make sure you can go across the crossing safely, whatever sort of crossing it is. Got a sign here saying humped zebra crossing. I've just got over one, so I'm checking my mirror, always the first thing to do in case I'm being tailgated. And I'm looking at the crossing right and left, it's all clear, and the two white triangles on the road here tell me that it's humped. So 20 is a good speed, or a bit less. In fact, it's quite a big one, so I've come down to 10 there. Mirror before we pick up speed. Always good practice too to be looking well ahead on the road. Keep your vision up, and then you'll see the problems earlier. You'll be ready all the sooner. And I can see now, looking well ahead past the bus, there's another zebra crossing. Mirror. No pressure from behind at all. And this crossing has a central island, so I'm just looking for pedestrians as I come up. Zigzags on the road. I can see a cyclist, I'm just going to take care. He is waiting. Notice he didn't get off his bike, which he should have done for the zebra crossing. So he's got off it now, but he cycled over it anyway. They're supposed to cyclists are supposed to get off their bikes unless it's a toucan, but rarely do they. A great rule for safe driving always is treat everyone with suspicion. Treat everyone with suspicion. And be very, very careful about pedestrians. These days, with so many people plugged in as they're walking along or on their mobiles, I've had them walk out in front of me many a time without looking at all. So be responsible, bear the shoulder the risk, as it were, when you see pedestrians. Now, in a moment, I need to talk about crossings that are split. And we do have a couple up the road here. Pretty busy on my right just now. Sometimes a crossing will be divided into two separate crossings with a kind of a central island. Now, if it's a zebra with a central island, it's two separate crossings. So if there was a pedestrian on the right hand side of the road using the crossing on the right, providing there's no risk, you could go through. As long as they're not going to get to the middle and step out before you get there, you can keep going. That's on a zebra divided in two. But with puffins and pelicans, it's slightly different. We've got one coming up here. I'm checking the mirror, looking for it now. This is divided in two, but there's a fence in the middle which tells me it's staggered. So when a pelican or a puffin is staggered, then it's two separate crossings, the same as a straight zebra. But if there's no fence in the middle, and the pelican or the puffin runs straight across the road with a central island, then it's one crossing. So you have to look at the left, look at the centre, and also look over on the right, because the pedestrian on the far side of the road might have pressed the button and it will stop you. So just to repeat and clarify, a zebra crossing with a central island is one crossing all the way across. Sorry, beg your pardon, it's two crossings. So the pedestrian on the right, on the far side of the road, needn't necessarily stop you if it's a zebra. But if it's a pelican or a puffin and it's straight with a central island, it's one crossing, and you must be prepared to stop for people on the far side. They press the button, it'll stop you. Checking the mirrors here, crossing ahead. Central island, this is a straight puffin pelican, so I have to check all 3 points here. So that was nice, that just came at a good time for us there to see. If you can see a fence in the middle, then you know the crossing is staggered, and as a pedestrian you will have experienced that many times. If the crossing is staggered, then the traffic on the right, or the pedestrian on the very far side over on the right, when he presses the button, it's not going to affect your lights. And we may see some more, I think we will see some more a little further down the road. See a pedestrian crossing, I'm checking my mirror. I can see also a central island here. There's no fence, it's a straight puffin or pelican. So I've got to check all 3 points, far side, centre and left, and we're safe to go. Got some traffic lights ahead, and I can see button boxes on the poles. So I know that pedestrians can have some input here. They could stop the traffic. I can't see any pedestrians waiting at all. There's one in the centre. Just being a bit wary as I go through. We're safe to go just about. Looking well ahead, I can see red lights well down the road on a little stretch of dual carriageway. So that's either a pelican or a puffin. We don't have to fuss too much about knowing precisely which it is. It's a flashing amber, so it's a pelican. All you need to know really is if it's not flashing, you wait for green. It's as simple as that. Check in the mirror then, clear behind. Fence in the centre, two separate crossings. So watching the woman on the left, she's walking out anyway. Just going carefully, watching the other woman. Is she going to press the button? No, she hasn't pressed the button, and she is waiting. Fine. She just pressed the button as we went by. But I must bear I must shoulder the risk. I'm the killer here, if I'm not careful. So I've got to shoulder the risk and watch them carefully. Don't trust pedestrians. Don't trust anybody. If you can help it, treat everyone when you're driving with suspicion. Aircraft, you needn't worry about too much. Helicopters and the like. No, we needn't worry about those. Yes, I've got a terrible sense of humour. So I'm told. I can see some lights just around the bend. Amber just gone to red. I've checked my mirror. There's a vehicle fairly well back on a long follow. Because he's well back, I'm just backing off the gas a little bit early. In the hope I can keep moving for the lights. It's closing up now though. The lights have changed, so I'm going to drop it a gear. Zigzags on the approach mirror. Now that was a straight pelican with a central island, so that's one crossing. So again, you check all 3 points. Land's closed up quite close now. But no threats at all ahead. I can see some more lights up the hill on red at the moment. Mirror. Because the van now is a lot closer, I'm maintaining my speed. See traffic coming out on the right, and I can see button boxes on the posts here, so pedestrians have control, but there are no pedestrians around at the crossing of this. Quite safe to go through. Mirror. I'm checking the mirror because the road's bending. Every hazard, whatever it is, we'll have a mirror check. I know from experience, from local knowledge, as I'm crossing around here, checking the mirror. It's a pelican or a puffin, and it's got a central island mirror, and it's straight. So check all 3 points, left, right and centre, no pedestrians around. Perfectly safe to keep going here. And I'm going to follow the road ahead at the roundabout first exit. See, looking ahead, I can see a zebra just after the roundabout here, keeping myself well on the left mirror, checking the zebra, broken in two separate crossings, nobody there at all, perfectly safe. More lights ahead, mirror, and again I know from experience this is a pedestrian crossing. Flashing amber, so we know it's a pelican. Mirror, I'll be moving out to the centre to see if I can get an opportunity to go by the bus. I'm not going to signal because there's a road on the right. The buses are moving, I'm quite safe where I am. Mirror. No one waiting on the left, central roundabout, somebody at Central Island, somebody is waiting on the right, so approaching with care now, and we're fine to go. On the left here, I'm going to take the second exit left off the roundabout. Keeping the left position here, coming through. So that's it. that's how we deal with pedestrian crossings. Again, let me just repeat, take the responsibility for safety. Don't trust the pedestrians because they're trusting you. As I mentioned earlier, you know, there have been a lot of deaths at crossings simply because the pedestrians they expect the traffic to watch out, and the traffic's expecting the pedestrian watch out. So those are the various kind of crossings. Hope that's helpful, and please, if you're going to use this video, use it in conjunction with on-road practice. These things need to be practiced on the road, and especially get in the habit, mirror as soon as you see the crossing, look for pedestrians as soon as you see the crossing, and respond accordingly. Thanks for watching.